My name is Emily. I'm 29 years old, and if you asked most people who know me, they'd probably say I'm the easy one. Calm one. The daughter who keeps the peace. I've always played that role well. Growing up, I learned quickly that staying agreeable made things smoother, especially in a house where emotions were managed with silence and memories were curated like museum pieces. Polished, controlled, and mostly selective. That's what made that night so strange. At first, it was just a regular dinner at my parents' house. Quiet Saturday, warm food, stories we'd all heard a dozen times. My mom laughing about the year she burned the Thanksgiving turkey. My dad recounting his college road trip to the Grand Canyon. My younger sister, Megan, sitting across from me with that half smile she always wore when she didn't quite believe what was being said. But then she sent the message. And everything shifted. Before I tell you what happened next, let me say this. If you've ever been the one in your family who felt something before you understood it, if you've ever had the gut deep sense that something wasn't quite right, but no one would say it out loud, subscribe to this channel. I share stories here for people like us. The quiet observers. The ones who pick up on what's not being said. The ones who find truth in the cracks between memories. We post new stories every week. Raw, emotional, and honest. Now, let me take you back to that night. Dinner was chicken pot pie and red wine. My mom wore one of her neatly ironed sweaters. My dad talked about a documentary he just watched on naval warfare, the kind of topic he always chose when he wanted to sound reflective without actually revealing anything. Megan had barely touched her food. I noticed she kept glancing at me. And her phone. Then mine buzzed in my lap. I opened it under the table. Megan, they're hiding something. Leave quietly. I stared at the screen. She didn't look at me. Just sipped her water, like she hadn't just dropped a grenade in my lap. I glanced around the table. My parents were mid-laugh about some friend from the 80s they hadn't seen in years. Nothing looked suspicious. Nothing felt strange. And yet, I trusted Megan. She wasn't dramatic. She didn't do vague warnings. If she said something was off, it was. I stood up slowly. I think I left something in my car. My mom looked up, blinking. You're leaving. Just for a second, I said calmly. I'll be right back. She smiled and nodded, unfazed. I stepped out into the cold night air, phone in hand, heart starting to pound. The front door clicked softly behind me. Another message came through. Megan, I can't talk. Just go home. Don't ask questions yet. Please. I didn't hesitate after that. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away, leaving behind the smell of pot pie, the carefully framed family photos in the hallway, and the version of reality my parents had spent years building. And I had no idea what I was about to find out. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay on my couch in sweatpants, still half-dressed from dinner, the overhead light off, my phone clutched in my hand like it was about to detonate. Megan hadn't said anything else. No explanation. No follow-up. Just that text. They're hiding something. Leave quietly. I kept replaying the night in my head. The way my dad had chuckled at his own jokes. How Mom had asked me if I was seeing anyone, then waved off my answer with a distracted nod. Had all seemed so normal. Boring even. But Megan had seen something I hadn't. And whatever it was, it had made her look at me like I needed to run. The next morning I called her. Straight to voicemail. I waited an hour and tried again. Still nothing. So I did what sisters do when things feel off. I drove to her place. She lived 20 minutes away, in a second-floor apartment near the university. When I knocked on her door, she answered instantly, like she'd been standing there the whole time. She looked wrecked. Dark circles under her eyes. Hoodie pulled tight. The Megan I knew, the one who always had a witty comeback and a meticulously clean space, looked hollow. She stepped aside to let me in. Don't freak out, she said. The living room was scattered with folders, notebooks, and a half-empty bottle of wine. On the coffee table sat a stack of photos, yellowing at the edges. I sat down slowly. Meg, what is this? She pulled her legs up under her on the couch and took a deep breath. You remember Aunt Rachel? And blinked. Yeah. She died before we were born, right? Mom's older sister. Megan nodded slowly. That's what I always thought too. I frowned. What do you mean? She picked up a photo from the table and handed it to me. It was black and white. Two little girls, standing in front of a picket fence. I recognized Mom immediately. Even as a child, her face was unmistakable. Next to her, a girl with darker hair, slightly taller, holding her hand. That's Rachel, Megan said. I nodded, confused. Okay. She handed me a second photo. This one looked like it had been torn at the bottom, like someone had tried to rip it in half and then changed their mind. It showed a high school yearbook portrait. Again Rachel. Meg, what is this? She looked me dead in the eyes. Rachel didn't die. She disappeared. I stared at her. What are you talking about? She left home when she was 17. And no one ever saw her again. At least, that's what our grandparents told people. Megan grabbed a folder and opened it. Inside was a copy of an old missing persons report, faded and smudged. Rachel Mary West, I read aloud. Last seen. 1985. My stomach dropped. No one talks about her, Megan said. Not Mom. Not Dad. Not Grandma before she passed. It's like she was erased. But I found these in a box in the attic. Last week. I felt like the room was tilting. I tried to catch up to make it make sense. But Mom's always said Rachel died of leukemia when she was a teenager. It was tragic. She cried telling that story. Megan nodded. I know. That's what I thought too. But this, she held up the report. This is real. Confirmed it. I looked up the case file. It's public. I sat in silence, waves of realization crashing hard and fast. They lied to us, I whispered. She nodded. I don't know why, she said. Or what happened to Rachel. But last night, Mom brought her up. Casually. Like a joke. Dad laughed. But something about the way he laughed felt wrong. That's when I texted you. I felt cold, like someone had cracked a window in my chest. So what do we do? Asked. Megan looked at me. We find out the truth. That night, I went home with a folder in my bag and 100 questions in my head. Why would they lie? Why pretend Rachel was dead? What happened to her? And what would happen if we uncovered something they spent decades trying to bury? One thing was certain. That night at dinner was just the beginning. The next few days felt like walking through fog with a flashlight. I went to work, answered emails, made calls, but everything felt muted. Like my life had split in two. The visible, normal surface, and the secret unraveling quietly underneath. Every free moment, I was back at Megan's apartment, sitting on the floor with folders spread around us, scanning photos and scribbled notes, chasing fragments of a person we never got to know. Rachel wasn't just a myth. She was real. And we were slowly piecing her together. Megan had gone deeper than I realized. She'd found a blog written by a woman who ran a Facebook group for families of long-term missing persons. She had posted once about Rachel, just a passing mention. Still hoping for answers about Rachel West. Last seen leaving a gas station on I-84. No sightings after that. The date matched the report in Megan's folder. Megan had commented under the post using a fake account. Asked if the woman knew Rachel personally. 2 hours later she got a reply. She was my friend in high school. Quiet. Tweet. Always writing in a journal. We lost touch. I only found out years later that she was gone. We stared at the message together in silence. She had a journal, Megan whispered. If we could find it. We won't, she said. If Mom found it, she would have burned it. That thought hit me harder than I expected. Because we knew our mother. And hiding things, especially painful, messy things, was her specialty. We didn't tell our parents we were investigating. We started small. Questions disguised as casual curiosity. So, how old was Rachel when she died again? I asked Mom on the phone. There was a pause before she answered. 17. Why? No reason. Just thinking about old family stuff. Another pause. Strange, she said. You never ask about her. I guess I'm just curious lately. She changed the subject almost immediately. Megan tried Dad next. So, did Rachel like music? Mom said she played piano. Dad hesitated. She might've. I don't remember, he said quickly. That was a long time ago. And just like that, the door slammed shut again. But something in their voices, the hesitation, the evasion, confirmed what we already knew. They weren't just leaving out details. They were protecting something. Then Megan got a message that changed everything. It came from a man named Thomas Green. He'd seen one of her anonymous posts in a missing persons thread. I knew Rachel, he wrote. If you're family, we should talk. I was at Megan's place when she read it. Her face went pale. He knew her. We messaged back. Carefully. He said he lived in Oregon now. That he used to date Rachel. Briefly. The summer before she vanished. She was scared, he wrote. Said someone was watching her. That she was going to leave town. Disappear. I thought she was just being dramatic. But then she really did. Felt cold all over. Megan messaged again. Who was she afraid of? No response. Not for hours. Then finally. She never said. But she mentioned someone in her family. Someone who knew things about her that could ruin everything. We sat there frozen, rereading it. Someone in her family. The realization landed slowly. Not a stranger. Not a boyfriend. Family. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking of all the years we'd been told a story that was crafted, curated, safe. A girl who died tragically young. Not a girl who vanished. Not a girl who was afraid. And definitely not a girl who might have known something too dangerous to name. In the morning, Megan texted me one line. We need to talk to Grandma's neighbor. I blinked, confused. Then remembered. When Grandma died, her neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, had mentioned knowing Rachel when they were young. We never followed up. Till now. Because if Rachel had confided in anyone before she vanished, it wouldn't have been our parents. It would have been someone who didn't have anything to lose. And Mrs. Callahan was the only name left. Mrs. Callahan still lived in the same house she'd occupied for 40 years. The neighborhood had changed around her. New paint colors, new cars, new fences, but her home remained untouched by time. Yellow siding, white shutters, wind chimes on the porch that clinked softly even without a breeze. She remembered us instantly. Oh, you're Donna's girls, she said, wiping her hands on her apron. You've grown so much. Megan and Emily, right? We nodded. We were hoping you might have a few minutes, Megan said gently. It's about Rachel. Her face changed immediately. She didn't invite us in. But she stepped out onto the porch, her eyes flicking once toward the street, like she needed to make sure no one else was listening. I wondered when this would come back, she said quietly. Megan and I sat on the porch swing. Mrs. Callahan stayed standing. She was sweet, she began. Quiet but smart. Too smart, really. You could tell she saw more than she was supposed to. Your mom never liked that. I frowned. What do you mean? She wasn't afraid to ask hard questions, she said. Even as a kid. One time, she asked me why your grandfather locked his basement door during the day. Megan and I looked at each other. Our grandfather, Mom and Rachel's dad, died when we were toddlers. We barely knew him. Mom rarely spoke about him. When she did, it was only in generic praise. He worked hard. He was respected. Mrs. Callahan continued. I didn't think much of it at the time. Kids are curious. But Rachel wasn't asking with wide-eyed wonder. She looked concerned. She glanced back toward her own front door, as if rechecking that she hadn't left something boiling on the stove. Then, a few weeks later, she stopped talking to me completely. No more waves from the window. No more questions. She looked scared. My stomach dropped. Megan leaned forward. Did she say anything? Before she left? She came to my door one morning, Mrs. Callahan said. It was early. She had a backpack and a paper envelope. She looked me in the eye and said, if anything ever happens to me, Tell someone I tried to say something. A pause. Then she walked away. I never saw her again. The porch fell silent. Megan whispered, "Did you keep the envelope?" Mrs. Callahan shook her head. "She didn't leave it with me. Just said she had it." A shadow passed over her expression. "I didn't know what to do," she added softly. "Your family told everyone she ran away. Then your mother told people she died. I wanted to believe that was true. It was easier. But it wasn't," I said, my voice low. She nodded once. "No, I don't believe it was." That night, Megan and I sat in her living room again, this time too stunned to do anything but process. "What was in the basement?" I asked quietly. Megan didn't answer. 'Cause we both knew. Not exactly, but in the way children know when something is wrong, even if no one says it. We remembered the way our mother changed when we visited Grandpa's house. How tense she became. How she flinched when he raised his voice. How she avoided eye contact whenever he was in the room. She never let us stay the night there. Not once. Even when he offered. The next morning Megan called me. "Are you sitting down?" "Yeah. I found something in the attic. In a box labeled Christmas decor." My heart skipped. "It's a journal," she said. "It's Rachel's." That evening we opened it together. The handwriting was messy at first. Young. Then steadier. Stronger. The entries started out ordinary. "Megan got in trouble at school today. Mom's mad about my report card. Dad says I'm too sensitive." Then slowly the tone shifted. "I don't like going downstairs alone anymore. I don't understand why he touches me differently than Donna." I told Mom. She said I was imagining it. Closed the book. I couldn't read more. Neither could Megan. There it was. In ink. In her own words. The thing no one wanted to say. The thing they'd spent decades burying. Rachel hadn't disappeared. She'd escaped. And our mother had let her go, because believing her would have meant confronting a truth that could destroy everything. The pieces snapped into place like shattered glass coming back together. Our grandfather. Rachel's fear. The missing journal. The whispers, the silence, the coldness that had always lingered under our mother's perfect smile. We weren't chasing a mystery anymore. We were holding the truth. And now we had to decide what to do with it. For the first time in weeks, Megan and I didn't talk. We sat in her apartment, the journal on the coffee table between us, unopened but vibrating with everything it contained. The silence felt heavier than words, like if we spoke too quickly, we might collapse under the weight of it. Rachel had tried to speak once, and no one listened. Now, decades later, she was speaking again, through the pages she left behind. And we were the ones who had to decide whether her truth would finally be heard. I didn't go to work the next day. I walked along the lake near my apartment instead, the air sharp and the sky low and gray. I watched a dog chase a stick into the water. Kid rode by on a bike laughing. Life continued untouched. But I wasn't the same anymore. I kept thinking about my mother. Her warm dinners. Her carefully folded sweaters. Her obsessive need for control. And underneath it all, the unbearable truth. She knew. She had known. And she said nothing. Not to protect Rachel. But to protect the family name. The image. Herself. That night, Megan and I sat in front of her laptop. We drafted an email. To the missing persons group. To the survivor advocacy organization Rachel's friend had mentioned. We attached scans of the journal. We blurred the most personal entries, but left the ones that mattered. We told them Rachel's name, and that she deserved to be remembered not as a runaway, or as a tragedy, but as someone brave enough to try to speak. Then we hit send. And everything changed. Within 2 days we got a response. A woman named Carla, who ran the group, wrote back. "I knew Rachel's case. We always suspected something was hidden. Thank you for finding her voice again." She asked for permission to share Rachel's story. Anonymously if we preferred. We said yes. Because Rachel had been silenced long enough. When we told our mother, she didn't yell. She didn't cry. She sat at the kitchen table and stared at the grain of the wood, her hands folded like someone bracing for impact. I did what I had to do, she said. No, I replied quietly. You did what was easier. She looked up then, and for the first time in my life, I saw something break in her face. Not just guilt, but fear. She had built her entire life on silence. And now, 2 daughters were burning it down. We're not here to destroy you, Megan said. But we won't protect the lie anymore, I added. She didn't answer. And we didn't expect her to. Because this wasn't about her redemption. It was about Rachel's. Weeks passed, then months. The post went live on the advocacy group's blog. Hundreds of shares. Comments from other survivors. One message stood out. I knew Rachel in Oregon. I think she was using a different name. She worked at a bookstore. She was kind, quiet. Then one day, she left again. We tried to follow the trail. Megan reached out. But we never got a confirmed lead. Rachel remained gone. But now, at least, the silence around her wasn't so complete. People knew she existed. People knew what she endured. She wasn't erased anymore. Megan and I still talk about her. Sometimes late at night. Sometimes when the sky looks like it did the night I left my parents' house in a rush. That strange mix of normal and wrong. We talk about the way she stood up, even when no one believed her. We talk about how brave she had to be. And we talk about how we're trying in our own way to be brave too. Not with loud gestures or dramatic fights. But with truth. With listening. With not turning away, even when the truth burns. If you've followed this story to the end, thank you. If you've ever felt like your family's silence swallowed something you couldn't name. If you've ever carried someone else's secrets so long you forgot what your own voice sounded like. If you've ever left quietly because it was the only safe thing to do, subscribe to this channel. We share stories here for people like you. People who know that healing isn't always a reunion. Sometimes it's simply saying this happened. And it mattered. New stories every week. Real ones. Because even when families lie, even when the truth gets buried, you're not crazy. And you are not alone. Emily.